Good evening, I'm Klaudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight, coming to you live from Warsaw on TVP World. We are committed to strengthening our deterrence and defense, including resilience against conventional as well as hybrid attacks, and to expanding sanctions against Russia as well as against those who enable Russia's aggression, said the statement of the leaders who met during the Baltic Summit in Sweden. This will be our main story of the day, which we will explore in more detail during our interview later in the program. But before that happens, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. New European Commission approved. Ursula Von der Leyen scores a victory, but with a razor-thin margin. Volhynia, a breakthrough in a thorny problem souring relations between Poland and Ukraine. Lewandowski has just scored 100 goals in the European club competition. As Europe faces growing uncertainty and threats, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has met with key Baltic and Nordic leaders to map out the way forward. Our chief political correspondent, Aaron Damon, reports from Sweden.
We will step up support for Ukraine. That was the message from the heads of government of Nordic and Baltic countries today, as well as Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. In fact, even French President Emmanuel Macron joined the talks briefly via video link, and a press conference has just wrapped up behind me. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
We will enhance our efforts, including to defense industrial production in Ukraine, and invest to increase Ukraine's ammunition supplies. We strengthen Ukraine's energy infrastructure to help them through the winter, and we support them on their path to EU and to NATO. All of us have made historic investments in the strengthening of our armed forces, and we all agree to prioritize defense spendings. Adding money beyond NATO's 2% default will be needed.
Remember, Donald Tusk came into this meeting wanting to convince these partners that Navy military patrols in the Baltic Sea were a good idea. So, was he successful? Here's what he told us.
I'm really happy that my colleagues found it interesting, and we will continue our work on some details. But I have no doubts that also because of our plans to invest more on the Baltic Sea, for example, our Polish energy security.
And just a few moments ago, I spoke exclusively to the Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson, and I asked him, why was it so important for Poland to be here at this Nordic-Baltic summit?
Poland is a neighbor country. Poland is a Baltic Sea country. Poland is the incoming presidency of the European Union. Poland is very like-minded in very many different ways. So I can give even more numbers of reasons, but I think it was a very good idea. And besides from that, we have a tradition of when we meet in the Nordic-Baltic circle, we tend to invite leaders that we think are of extra importance also for us.
Tomorrow, Ulf Kristersson and Donald Tusk will sit down for a bilateral meeting and sign a new strategic agreement. Of course, this all comes in the backdrop of the big dance for Poland, the rotating EU presidency, which it assumes from January. In Harpsund for TVP World, I'm Aaron Darman.
It will be a fight for freedom, sovereignty, security and prosperity, says Ursula von der Leyen. The European Parliament has approved the composition of the new European Commission, which will begin its term next month. Poland will also take over the presidency of the Council of the European Union then. December will be a month of great change in Europe, but the challenges are even greater. Here's our European correspondent Sasha Farbach with his report.
Von der Leyen 2.0, but it was just by the most narrowest of margins, 370. That was less than what she had 5 years ago. And it's one of the actually lowest, narrowest of margins in decades here. But nevertheless, this new team now stands to tackle the host of problems that this European Union is facing, geopolitical ones, you name it, from migration, how to keep Europe competitive, and also how to move forward with enlargement, with reform. We heard that in Ursula von der Leyen's speech here this morning.
We want Ukraine as part of our European Union. So we will stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes. So let's get to work. Long live Europe. Vive l'Europe. Es lebe Europa.
Now, one of the main policy areas also that she mentioned was about defense. Now, this is also a win for the Baltic states, looking at those powerful positions, also looking at Kaja Kallas from Estonia as the new chief diplomat, looking at trade commissioner from Latvia, and looking at the defense commissioner out of Lithuania and from Poland with that powerful role controlling the budget. Now, we heard that defense was going to be a priority, and that will be very much felt here across EU institutions.
Defense spending will certainly increase at the national level. Today's question for the member states is this: whether by spending part of the funds on defense jointly, through the European budget, or through other tools that could be created at the European level, will we achieve greater efficiency? Will we get more security for the same money?
Judging from the Von der Leyen speech, of today, so she mentioned defense and security many times. Finally, recognition and I hope some practical steps and decisions will follow. So, defense economy and probably some issues connected to some urgencies in Europeans' daily life, like housing, like some social issues.
Now, there's a whole array of problems, but one of the things here, despite the political wrangling, gains for the right, this is something here that we have noticed that there was a speed. No commissioners were rejected in the end, ultimately, which is significant, and partially that is due to the uncertain and choppy waters across the Atlantic and what Donald Trump will do once he assumes office in January. That's Sasha Farbach for TVP World in Strasbourg.
Experts say Poland is trying to take a bigger role in Europe and the region, especially in the face of the upcoming Donald Trump presidency in the United States and the expected change of policy on the war in Ukraine. Kazimierz Wysiak reports.
Before coming to Stockholm, the Polish Prime Minister announced a new idea for strengthening the security of the Baltic Sea.
At the summit, I will try to convince our partners about the need for immediately creating a formula aimed at securing and policing the Baltic Sea waters.
According to Marek Madej, a professor of security studies at Warsaw University, the idea of navy policing could gain traction among NATO allies, particularly in the context of the recent acts of sabotage in the Baltic Sea.
Good response to things which I mentioned, that is the cutting cables incidents and the problem of critical infrastructure which is under sea, and also the fact that we have Kaliningrad, or rather Królewicz, within, let's say, encircled by NATO countries, but at the same time being a strong military base of Russia.
Other analysts, like Edward Lucas, a journalist formerly writing for The Economist, believe that with such proposals, Poland could be looking for potential new security partners.
Poland is rapidly developing a northern dimension to its security and defense policy, and the Nordic and Baltic countries are looking for a big, militarily strong country to be their kind of anchor.
This shift to the north is in stark contrast to Poland's previous focus, namely some of its direct neighbors in Central Eastern Europe. A few of these allies have recently gone against the current when it comes to EU foreign policies.
Not just Hungarian government, but Slovak and actually Austrian as well, moving in a kind of pro-Putin, pro-Chinese direction. And I think that the traditional orientation of Polish policy to the Visegrad group, the Central European Four, has really hit the buffers.
Poland is also looking to strengthen its ties with the biggest players in Europe. The informal Group of Five, established this Monday in Berlin, joins together Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Italy and Poland under a common goal of taking more responsibility for security on the old continent. These diplomatic efforts by Poland have intensified after the re-election of Donald Trump as US president in the beginning of the month.
Yes, Europe needs to spend more on defense, not because it wants war, but because we wish to prevent it. We want our partners to respect what Europe puts forward.
Many European leaders are preparing for the potential cutting of US funding to Ukraine and an abrupt end to the war with Russia.
take initiative, have an upper hand, be surprised with its actions, and be bold with them, that also means that Putin might think twice before he conducts any kind of further aggressions, for instance, if there's some sort of a ceasefire deal put in place.
Poland is getting ready for its rotating presidency in the Council of the European Union, a body responsible for conducting and adopting EU policies. Warsaw will take up this post in the first half of 2025.
There are no obstacles to exhuming the remains of Poles massacred by Ukrainians during World War II. Kyiv has said, signaling a possible breakthrough in a thorny problem souring relations between the two nations. The Ukrainian Institute of National Memory plans to launch a search for the remains of Polish victims next year. The topic could become important in the election campaign ahead of Poland's presidential race. Marek Stier reports.
The exhumations of the Polish victims of the Volhynia massacre have been resurfacing in bilateral talks between Warsaw and Kyiv for years. The matter could now be solved.
Ukraine confirms that there are no obstacles to the conduct of search and exhumation work on the territory of Ukraine by Polish state institutions and private entities in cooperation with relevant Ukrainian institutions.
Up to 120,000 people could have been killed at the hands of Ukrainian nationalists, supported by parts of the local Ukrainian population between 1943 and 1945 in the lands of what today is Western Ukraine. Many of the victims were never properly buried. The resting place of thousands is unknown.
Each family has the right to honor their ancestors with dignity, and now within a special Polish-Ukrainian group under both countries' culture ministries, we are working on the practical mechanisms to carry out searches and exhumations.
This represents a shift in Kyiv's approach to the problem. Former Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, who took part in Campus Poland this summer, was criticized after saying that carrying out exhumations would be digging in history. Polish officials, including the country's defense minister, then warned that if the issue of the Volhynia massacre was not resolved, Poland would oppose Kyiv's EU accession.
As the long-standing Polish position goes, Ukraine would not be allowed to European Union without solving its historical disputes. So this is definitely a positive step towards Ukrainian-Polish relations.
Kyiv is currently losing land to the Russians at an unprecedented speed since the start of the invasion. The support of its allies, including Poland, is now more important than ever. But this is also a matter of Polish domestic politics. A deal made now by the ruling coalition could take away political fuel from Poland's conservative opposition, to whom historical matters are fundamental. The Law and Justice Party has endorsed Karol Nawrocki, the head of Poland's Institute of National Remembrance, ahead of next year's presidential race.
The Institute of National Remembrance, our search and identification branch, is ready to start actual searches in Volhynia within 24 hours. Therefore, we are waiting for an official confirmation.
One of the main objectives of the institute headed by Nawrocki is to bring the matter of the exhumations to an end. The Polish president, who was once a Law and Justice Party candidate, expressed reservation about the latest announcement.
We'll be able to speak of success when the process of exhumation and search actually begins. That's when there will be success.
We simply want to commemorate the memory of our victims, bury our dead, which no matter which party is going to rule, is going to be difficult to achieve, because as the exhumations start, we'll see many mutilated corpses of men, women and children, and this will shed more light on the activity of people considered to be heroes in Ukraine who are mass murderers.
80 years on, the brutality of the massacre still makes it difficult to talk about.
In the early hours of Wednesday, Israel and Lebanese armed group Hezbollah accepted a ceasefire agreement brokered with the mediation of the United States and France. The diplomatic success entails Israel's withdrawal from South Lebanon and Lebanon's army deployment in the region to halt any Hezbollah presence along the border. While announcing the deal, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emphasized that Israel would retain complete military freedom of action and respond forcefully to any violation by Hezbollah. Aisha Abaji has more.
The ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah came into effect on Wednesday at 4 a.m. local time after 14 months of fighting. Thousands of locals started returning to their homes hours after the announcement, amid warnings from Lebanon's army not to return before the withdrawal of Israeli troops. However, this deal does not guarantee the end of hostilities. Less than an hour before the announcement on Tuesday, Beirut was hit by another wave of airstrikes. US President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron expressed their hopes that the agreement would pave the way for ending the war in Gaza. But the conditions of lasting peace were made clear by both leaders: sovereignty of the Lebanese state and the end of Hezbollah influence.
Over the next 60 days, the Lebanese army and state security forces will deploy and take control of their own territory once again. Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon will not be allowed to be rebuilt.
The restoration of Lebanon's sovereignty requires the immediate election of a president capable of uniting the Lebanese people.
Authorities in Tel Aviv gave a long list of possible violations of the ceasefire that would not go unnoticed.
If Hezbollah violates the agreement and tries to arm, we will attack. If it tries to renew terror infrastructures close to the border, we will attack. If it launches rockets, if it digs a tunnel, if it enters a truck with missiles, we will attack.
The truce solves a part of the conflict raging across the border that separates Israel and Lebanon. The exchange of fire began the day after the October 7, 2023 attack by Hamas on Israel. Israel's defense minister pointed that the next item on the agenda would be the return of the 97 hostages in Gaza abducted during the attack.
The results of the campaign in the north create additional pressure on Hamas, and we, and I, intend to make every effort to create the conditions for a new hostage deal and bring everyone home.
After more than a year of conflict, it is hoped that the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah will allow tens of thousands of civilians from both sides to return safely to their homes and to achieve a level of stability much needed by civilian populations.
Polish football star Robert Lewandowski has surpassed the threshold of 100 goals scored in the best European club competition, the UEFA Champions League. This milestone puts Lewandowski on par with only Cristiano Ronaldo and Leo Messi. Piotr Miszczuk has more.
It's a historic feat for Poland's Lewandowski, who on Wednesday scored his 100th and 101st goals, bringing his team Barcelona to a 3-0 victory over France's Brest. After the Tuesday game, the Polish striker expressed his happiness in a video addressed to Barcelona supporters, also known as Coolers.
Hola Coolers, how are you? I'm very happy because we won today the game Champions League, but also I scored 100 and 101 goals in Champions League, so yeah, I'm very proud. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.
He's now only behind Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo and Argentine Leo Messi, arguably the greatest players of all time.
Robert himself says that Messi and Ronaldo are two aliens, are two guys from the different world, but it would mean that he is the best of the rest. But I feel like being the best of the rest in this particular case is still something remarkable.
Many experts stress that Lewandowski's shape is even more impressive now that he's 36, a very old age for a footballer. By breaking the barrier of 100 goals, Lewandowski has left an indelible mark on the sport as a whole.
He has his standout games, like 5 goals in 9 minutes against Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga while he was playing for Bayern München. His 4 goals against Real Madrid that we all still remember after all those years that he has scored while he was playing for Borussia Dortmund.
Lewandowski is this season's top scorer in the Champions League, and his team Barcelona is one of the main contenders for the title, according to bookmakers. But the Polish player's goals might bring more silverware for the Catalan team.
I guess the Barcelona will be fighting for the title in Spain as well and for the Spanish cap. So there will be plenty of opportunities to win another trophies for Lewandowski and this team.
Over the course of his 17-year career, Lewandowski has scored a total of 590 goals in all his club games. He's also the best all-time scorer for the Polish national football team. In 156 caps, he netted 84 goals.
The Baltic Summit came at a pivotal time for Europe, which is facing major strategic uncertainties, particularly over support for Ukraine. Escalation between the West and Russia is amplified by recent events which could be considered as elements of hybrid warfare. How are Poland, the Baltic states and the Nordics planning to act to ensure greater security in the Baltic? What are the next steps that could follow in the summit? What about the support for Ukraine? To answer these questions and more, I'm joined by Olev Snickers, president at the Baltic Security Foundation and former advisor to the Minister of Defense of the Republic of Latvia. Good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening.
So we heard from Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who said ahead of the Baltic Summit that he will try to persuade Poland's partners for the need of Navy policing mission at the Baltic Sea to secure against the Russian threats. What measures have to be taken in order to do that? And do all of these countries that are involved in this summit have the capacity in order to secure the Baltic?
First of all, I would like really to congratulate Polish Prime Minister on this idea that this is, we really feel like, and we see this is like a last call for the regional partners to consolidate our resources across the Baltic Sea. It was a long discussion among think tank members and occasional also talks among politicians that there should be a unified strategy, naval security, maritime security strategy for the Baltic Sea. And those hopes for that strategy were related also closely to enlargement of NATO. And since we got Sweden and Finland in NATO now, I think we are in the best shape, in the best situation, and actually the moment is right for us to come up with the unified policies, consolidated acts, and consolidated resources, and especially what the Prime Minister was saying that he was comparing the naval situation, the maritime security to the air policing mission, which is already in place for the Baltic countries. But now it's a good time for us to come up with very similar policies regarding the maritime security.
I would like to take a moment because we're talking about the Navy policing, we're talking about the summit, and we also have to mention, in that sense, could EU endorse coalitions of the willing strengthen the EU security policy? What is your opinion on this?
That's a million question. We are trying to answer what would be the best way for European Union to come up with the solid, unified and consolidated defense and security policy, and I think this largely belongs to the decisions and to the leaders of the European Union. I mean, Germany and France. But I think since Poland, is quite vividly like undertaking some roles of that leadership, I think we just should follow the suit, as the closest regional partners here. The Baltic countries and Poland in my opinion, we do whatever it takes to synchronize our defenses across the Baltic Sea, and then so we I think we are in the right place and time to convince also the other, the leaders of the Union and other partners when we are looking on the Baltic Sea nations. So I think we have quite consolidated the team, of countries here, and then Germany is one of the Baltic Sea nation, which is in this situation, which is not bad.
And considering the summit, which is currently taking place, what do you think will be what do you think will be Russia's response to the summit, and actually to the suggestion to have the Baltic security reinforced?
Of course, Russia and Putin would say, everything is going on against Russia, and Russia is being threatened again, and the new policies are being contemplated, which again and again would only bring more insecurity for the region. I think that would be the usual Russian rhetoric in this situation. But we must understand for ourselves that there are certain things, certain homework, and certain policies that should be urgently implemented. And in that regard, I think we all in the Baltic countries should just applaud Donald Tusk for his initiatives.
I would like to take a moment to take a look at a quote by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk in Sweden today during the press conference. He said, "We have to be aware, and our group is aware, our support to Ukraine is also something very egoistic, very pragmatic, very rational. It's not only because of values, it's not only because of the support, we support the right for independence and freedom for Ukrainian friends. It is also important because of our individual and European interests," end quote. How are the countries in attendance during this summit are planning to not only provide more help for Ukraine in case the next U.S. presidency is going to turn out to show less support to Ukraine, but also to actually secure themselves and be able to develop their defense strategies?
This is a very ultimate challenge for us these times, when we are really following and we are kind of worried of how the Trump presidency, how his administration would be acting, and what decisions would be taken regarding Ukraine and regarding basically transatlantic relationship. And here, this is ultimate for the European countries to build up their defense industries, to synchronize their defense plans, and taking more attention and really acting more and planning exercises, joint exercises, not only on tabletop but also live. Real life exercises as well across the region, and I'm looking more on inter-regional, sub-regional formats of closer cooperation here, and I really refer to the Baltic countries and Poland, to the Baltic countries and Nordics. And of course, this is ultimate also for this regional coalition. Let's say for Germany to be engaged. But I think it's time for us really to realize, and we understand that for us it's more than necessary to really consolidate, to build up our industries, and so really proceed with real actions, with the real plans, how we would respond to our regional threats, whatever Trump administration would propose for the peace in the region, and resolving that situation. We Europeans here will deal with the consequences. So this is up to us how we will face it.
Thank you so much. Olev Snickers was my guest, president at the Baltic Security Foundation. Thank you for coming to the program.
Thank you so much.
And so this would be all for now here on World News Tonight, but I do hope to see you here on TVP World, tuning in for more news and features in just a moment.